It's that time of year again. As we head into 2026, there are a bunch of tax changes in Canada you need to know about, and I'm here to share the most important ones with you. Hey, I'm Jessica, qualified associate financial planner and best-selling author of Everything But Money. And I've been educating people about taxes, investing, and everything in between for 14 years now. And I genuinely get excited to talk about this stuff. I'm a nerd. I know. And I'm okay with that. But there are quite a few changes in 2026 that you need to be aware of so you can integrate them into your tax planning for next year. So let's dive in. Let's start with the new contribution limits for your RRSP and TFSA. The new RRSP dollar limit for 2026 is $33,810, up from $32,490 in 2025. But that's not all. We also know the RRSP dollar limit for 2027, which is $35,390. Now, as a reminder, the amount of new RRSP contribution room you get each year is based on 18% of your earned income from the previous year up to the annual RRSP dollar limit. In other words, the more you earn, the more RRSP room you get up to a certain maximum. So if you earned $60,000 in 2025, well, 18% of that is $10,800. That would be how much new RRSP contribution room you'd get for 2026. But if you earned $300,000 in 2025, 18% of that is $54,000. Well, because that's over the RRSP dollar limit for 2026, your contribution room would be capped at the RRSP dollar limit of $33,810. TFSAs, on the other hand, are a lot more equitable. Everyone gets the same amount of new contribution room every year. The new TFSA dollar limit for 2026 is $7,000, the same as last year and the year before. However, it's important to note that TFSA contribution room only starts accruing as soon as you turn 18, which is why not everyone has the exact same amount of room as each other. For example, if you were 18 or older in 2009 when the TFSA first launched and you never made a contribution to your account and just let that room accumulate, in 2006, you'd have a total of $109,000 in TFSA contribution room available. But if you turn 18 in 2026, well, you'll only have $7,000 in room. Now, what's fairly unique about the TFSA is that you never stop accumulating room, no matter your age. So if you're watching this and you're 96 years old, you're getting another $7,000 in TFSA room next year too. Now, in terms of what you should do with this contribution room, well, I've got some thoughts, because you wouldn't believe how many people I've talked to over the years who think they've been investing inside their RRSP or TFSA only to find out that there's actually just a bunch of cash sitting in there earning barely any interest. That's not how you build wealth, and that's certainly not going to help you retire one day. You need to actually invest that money. And if you'd like to learn how to invest in a very simple way with low-cost index ETFs, well, I've been teaching students how to do just that for over 4 years in my Wealth Building Blueprint for Canadians course. No joke, I was actually at a speaking engagement the other day, and one of my students happened to be there and said she signed up 4 years ago and now has a 6-figure investment portfolio, and she credits my course for helping her get there. I love hearing these stories about building wealth and getting started. So if you want to get started and learn more, all you have to do is go to jessicamorehouse.com/course or click the link below that I've included in the description. Okay, next, let's move on to federal tax brackets, which are indexed to inflation. Now, in 2025, tax brackets increased by 2.7%, but since inflation has been on the decline, in 2026, tax brackets will only increase by 2%. Here are all the new tax brackets for next year. And if you want to learn more about tax brackets and how our progressive tax system works in Canada, make sure to watch this video next. Along the same lines as tax brackets, the basic personal amount has also increased for 2026. The basic personal amount, or BPA, is a non-refundable tax credit that, when applied, reduces your taxes owing. Another way of thinking about it is it's the amount of income you can earn without having to pay any federal income tax. To apply this tax credit, you'd take the BPA of $16,452 and multiply it by 14%, which is the lowest federal income tax bracket, to get to $2,303.28. This is the maximum tax credit you can apply to your tax bill for the basic personal amount, as long as your income is $181,400 or less. Now, if you earn over this amount, the BPA gradually claws back until it reaches $14,829 for incomes at or above $258,482. This clawback was put in place so that the BPA primarily benefits lower and middle income taxpayers. Let me show you some examples with some different incomes to make this make sense. Let's say you earn $15,000 in 2026. Well, to find out how much federal income tax you would owe, you would go 15,000 times 14%, the tax bracket your income would fall into, to get to $2,100. That's how much tax you would owe. But considering the BPA is $2,303.28, you would take your taxes owing of $2,100 and reduce it by the credit amount to arrive at, well, negative $203.28. However, this is a non-refundable tax credit, which means you can't use the credit to reduce your tax bill below zero. So you would simply arrive at zero or no taxes owed. But let's say you earn $80,000 in 2026. With that higher income, you'd land in the bottom two tax brackets. After some quick calculations, you'd find out that you'd owe $12,596.01 in federal income tax. But after applying that tax credit to it, you'd only owe $10,292.73 in taxes. The good news is you don't have to make this calculation when filing your taxes. Either your accountant or accounting software will do it for you. But just wanted to show you the math in case you've always been curious what that is. As for some important tax deadlines for 2026, you have until Monday, March 2nd to contribute to your RRSP, Pooled Registered Pension Plan, PRPP, or Specified Pension Plan, SPP, if you'd like to use that contribution as a tax deduction on your 2025 tax return. This 2-month window in the new year is what's known as RRSP season. In addition to that, you've got until Thursday, April 30th to file your taxes if you're an employee, or June 15th if you or your spouse or common law partner are self-employed. But don't forget, because I think a lot of people don't realize this, even though you have longer to file your taxes when you're self-employed, you still have to pay any taxes you owe by April 30th. If you owe taxes but don't make a payment until after this deadline, the CRA will likely charge you interest on your balance. Similarly, if you file your taxes after these deadlines, the CRA will charge you a late filing penalty. Since you probably don't want to pay the government any more money than necessary, put these dates in your calendar so you're not late. Now let's move on to the Canada Pension Plan, CPP. CPP contributions remain the same at 5.95% of earned income for employees and employers, and 11.9% if you're self-employed, because you have to pay both the employee and employer portions. The basic exemption amount, which is the minimum annual amount of income you can earn before you have to contribute to CPP, also remains the same at $3,500. However, the year's maximum pensionable earnings, YAMPE, has increased to $74,600. This is the annual cap on earnings used to calculate your CPP contributions. To put this into context, if you earned $74,600 in 2026, you'd owe $4,230.45 in CPP as an employee, and double that if you're self-employed. But what if you earn more than that? Well, that's where the year's additional maximum pensionable earnings, YAMPE, comes in. This is the second earnings ceiling that only affects taxpayers whose income is above that first earnings ceiling. The YAMPE for 2026 is $85,000, meaning for any income you earn between $74,600 up to $85,000, you will need to contribute additional CPP. But it's not as bad as it sounds. Employees contribute 4% of the amount within this income range up to a maximum of $416, and self-employed people contribute 8% up to $832. Now, for some context, if you're an employee in 2026 earning $85,000 or above, you would owe an additional $416 in CPP. And if you're self-employed, you would owe an extra $832. But you'd never owe any more than that. The most you'd ever have to contribute to CPP if your income is $85,000 or above is $4,646.45 for an employee, or double that if you're self-employed. Also important to note, there is a financial benefit to contributing this extra CPP amount. It's not just some extra tax you have to pay because you earn more. This enhancement increases the amount the average work earning CPP replaces from 25% to 33.33%. In other words, you may be contributing more, but you'll also receive more in CPP payments when you retire. Now, speaking of contributions, let's talk about employment insurance, EI. The maximum annual insurable earnings threshold has increased to $68,900 for 2026, up from $65,700 in 2025. If you're an employee, you must pay 1.63% of your earnings into EI up to a maximum of $1,123.07. So if you earn, say, $40,000 in 2026, you would owe $652 in EI. But if you earn $68,900 or above in 2026, you would pay the maximum amount of $1,123.07. Employers also have to contribute contribute to EI, but they contribute at 1.4 times what employees contribute, which for 2026 will be 2.282%, up to a maximum of $1,572.30. Okay, the last tax change I want to share, which was actually announced back in March, but some people still don't know about it, has to do with capital gains tax. Now, you may remember back in April 2024, the federal budget announced that they'd be increasing the capital gains inclusion rate from 50% to 66.7% for corporations and most trusts, as well as for individuals with capital gains exceeding $250,000. Well, it was supposed to take effect on June 25th, 2024, but then in January 2025, the government pushed the date it would take effect to January 1st, 2026. Then Trudeau resigned, and then we had a new federal election, and then got a new prime minister, and Carney scrapped the whole damn thing. So long story short, we all had to memorize a bunch of new capital gains rules for absolutely no reason. Nothing's changed. Capital gains inclusion rates remain as they were at 50%. Now, there are a few more tax changes for 2026, but they really only affect specific categories of people, such as businesses and retirees, which is why I'm not going to go through them in this video, but I am going to include a few additional resources in the description below if you'd like to learn more about those. But these really are the key tax changes you should know for 2026. So I hope this video was helpful. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video.